Hello, this will be the reading of When We're Together, I'm Not Afraid of My Tears by Must Have Been the Wind, Chapter 3, Confrontation. Chapter Summary. Aizawa watches as Nakahara loses the red glow around his body and begins plummeting to the ground, helpless as gravity breaks free from his control. Content warnings for this chapter are gun violence, mentions of being burned, breaking bones. I hope you enjoy it. If there's one thing Tria hates dealing with, it's when people assume he's an idiot. They take one look at how easily he takes out a group of 20 enemies and decides he must only be good at fighting. Of course, it doesn't help that those same people then look at the genius that is Dazai and assume he does all the thinking for them both. Which, sure, Dazai makes all the plans and is briefly informed of everything that could possibly change said plan. But he doesn't do that because Tria is stupid. Dazai makes the plans because he is, and it pains Tria to admit this, better at accounting for any problems. Tria handles the fighting, not because Dazai can fight, but because the wimp is the size of a twig and also, suicidal. On solo missions, he makes plans that work fine and notices all the things that a rookie wouldn't. It just takes him a few minutes longer than what it would take Dazai. So yeah, he has been wondering what the hell that livestream was about. Everything about it felt wrong compared to Dazai's usual methods, all of it right down to very clearly saying his name. It was a small detail, but glaringly obvious to Tria. That bastard has plenty of nicknames to choose from. So many, in fact, he hears the nicknames more than his actual name. It's always Slag this and Chibi that. At this point, Tria responds to any insult that leaves Dazai's mouth, and 90% of the time it is directed at him. The point is, calling Tria by name was an intentional choice, so he returned the favor, assuming that was what the bastard wanted. Of course, after the stream ended, Dazai refused to explain anything and just looked at him in that way. The way that screams, I'm up to no good, but you'll have to figure it out yourself. It's infuriating because Tria knows whatever Dazai is planning will end up affecting him too. Like the time they were sent on a mission to take out a rival group. Things were going fine. Great even. Then one of them started blowing the building up around Tria. It didn't matter much in the long run, and he still beat the group easily, but still, it sure would have been nice to know about. Shitty Dazai had claimed he forgot about it. How he has the nerve to bold-faced lie to Tria's face like that is a mystery. That, along with the sixth sense he has developed for Dazai's shenanigans, means he is 100% sure something is going to go down. He does have a few ideas about what the Makaro's motivations may be, although it feels like he's missing a piece of information. That livestream was an intentional move to apparently warn the pro heroes to stay out of Yokohama, but honestly, if Trio was one of the pro heroes, he would be so pissed off by it. Killing one of his own like that, yeah, he'd start throwing people. That very well could be the motivation behind it. Maybe Dazai wanted to piss the pros off intentionally, but then the missing bit of information comes up again. Why would he do that? Seems like a lot of trouble, so there has to be a reason. That final piece of information finally comes to him a few days later when he's reporting back to the boss. The report of his most recent solar mission was received well, and Tria had expected to be excused quickly after giving his report. The boss looked through the paper report and absently-minded commented, "Oh, good job on that livestream. I'm sure it will be quite effective. I assume Dazai came up with the idea." Quite effective? And effective in doing what? His confusion must have shown on his face as the boss laughs a little. So he didn't tell you. Somehow I'm not surprised. Tria feels a headache already forming. Or perhaps that's Arahabiki reminding he go and beat Dazai to a pulp? Honestly, it's hard to tell. He shakes his head. No, he didn't. The boss nods in understanding. I see. Here, have a copy of the news mission that has been assigned to you too. I'm sure Dazai will give you more information if you need it. Internally, Tria scoffs. That idiot will probably just whine about Tria finding about the mission. Externally, he takes the paper with a bow and is excused shortly after. While he does itch to read the contents and know exactly what he's been dragged into, it feels smarter to walk away from the boss's office before doing that. Typically, when Dazai is involved, he ends up breaking a wall, so to be safe, he goes down a few levels before opening paper. Mission assignment. Needed agents. Dazai Osamu, Nakahara Chuya. Mission length undetermined. Mission objective. Take down All for One / League of Villains. Sub-objective. Gather information on Pro-Hero Society. Additional information. Due to an increase in pro-heroes and the League of Villains attempting to enter Yokohama, agents Dazai Osamu and Nakahara Chuya are required to take out the League of Villains and stop pro-hero interference. Okay, so there's a chance that livestream was really meant as a warning to stay away from Yokohama, but also there's no way in hell that Dazai wouldn't anticipate retaliation from the pro-heroes. This means he's counting on that happening, maybe even expecting a fight. A chill ran down Chuya's spine. A fight, sure, but against who? All the pro-heroes? It probably wouldn't be that much of a pain, especially if he uses corruption. But that seems unlikely. They'd probably take a smaller team if they wanted to get into Yokohama for the fight. A small team of the best fighters. The best would be the top 10. Hey, Chuya, who do you think is stronger, you or All Might? Bastard. Dazai is given exactly no warning before a wild Chuya appears and throws a punch right at his face. While he is very used to his partner's antics by now, dodging seems like a pain, so instead he takes the hit and turns to Chuya with the most upset face he could muster. Chuya is so violent and for no reason. To really sell the whining act, Dazai makes sure to puff a little and is delighted when Chuya scoffs. Chibi always gives the best reactions. No fucking reason? The boss told me about the mission, so why the hell didn't you? Chuya nearly yells. To an outsider, they may believe Dazai is about to get murdered. But again, he knows the Chibi well enough to categorize his anger levels. This is about a 4 out of 10, so a couple of punches to Dazai and maybe the nearby walls, and he'll be fine. Knowing this allows him to get away with annoying Chuya further, which is a very fun thing to do. A hand grabbing his collar brings his attention back to Chuya in front of him. Well? Dazai shrugs. I have no idea what you mean, slag. That earns him being shook back and forth at rapid speeds. Bastard, give me the plan already. I'm not fighting fucking All Might with no prior warning. You got that? Chibi is very demanding in his tone, which almost makes Dazai want to refuse to tell him anything. It is very amusing to see his partner caught off guard mid-fight. Yet another part of him is pleased that Chuya figured out who his main opponent will be already. An above average slag, indeed. Deciding to be nice this once, he concedes. Chibi spoiled the surprise, so I guess I can tell you. Once Chuya lets go of his collar, with a satisfied look on his face, he begins laying out the plan. Mori-sans wants us to defeat All for One and his little League of Villains. It just so happens that the League of Wannabes has their eyes on attacking Class of 1A of Yuha High School. Chuya interrupts. Yeah, and? You gonna use them as bait or something? Shaking his head, Dazai continues. Not quite, you see. I figured out it would be easier to be there with 1A. We can easily gather information on both the League and pro-heroes that way. A look of dread soon takes place on Chuya's face, almost like he's hoping Dazai won't say what he thinks he will. In reaction to this, Dazai smirks. That's right, Chibi. We're going to school. Immediately, Chuya shakes his head. No, I'm not going to any school, let alone one for hero nerds. Dazai sighs and gestures for Chuya to sit down. Prior to the vicious attack on his face, he had been enjoying a nice book, The Ultimate Guide to Suicide, Water Methods, of course, in Chuya's office. He would have gone to his own, but there's paperwork there, and frankly, Dazai doesn't want to do them. If he waits a few days, Chuya will do them for him anyway. Right now, they are both sitting on the fancy sofa that Chuya had insisted be put in for some reason. Chuya crosses his arms in a physical way of showing his defensiveness. In contrast, Dazai makes sure to adopt a more open position. Here's what will happen, Chibi. The top 3 or so pro-heroes will come into Yokohama and defeat us. We'll give them a good fight, but in the end, we lose. Then, before we can be tried for murder, the principal of OUA will give us a deal to do a reformation course. Dazai continues with a pause. After that, we stick with 1A to get information on the pro heroes, and when the opportunity strikes, take down the league. Sounds good? It's a rhetorical question. Of course, too many things are in motion now for a planned change. Will that stop Chibi from answering? No, it won't. Not good. Chuya answers as if on cue. First of all, how the hell are they getting Yokohama, and how are you sure that that principal guy will give us a deal? Also, most importantly, I don't want to go to some hero school. Chuya huffs with annoyance, but Dazai ignores it, like usual. They'll get in because Principal Netsu's contact is an acquaintance of mine. As for the deal, I know we'll get it because we're unfortunate teenagers led down a dark path. Chuya looks at him skeptically. His face perfectly conveys his judgment about the last sentence. Obviously, neither of them are the pity cases that the pros will expect, but with a little bit of acting, no one will be the wiser. Daza explains this to his partner. When they capture us, act all upset and scared, like you don't want to be separated from me. Act like an usual 15-year-old. That way, the pros who double as teachers will feel pity for us. Chuya shoots him an unimpressed look, clearly still on board with going to UA. You're so hard to please, lad. Daza ignores the other's sound of offense. I don't want to go to UA either, but it's the easiest way. The plan is also in motion already, so you have no choice. That earns him a smack around the head. God, I hate being your partner. Chuya's tone is both annoyed and defeated, which means he's on board with the plan. Now, the only thing left to do is to get the exact information on which pros will be arriving, and fine-tune the battle plan. The top three will definitely make an appearance, possibly with that Razorhead guy. While he should warn Chuya about the possibility of upon detecting Sorrow being erased mid-fight, Dazai thinks it would be far more entertaining to keep quiet about it. Chibi found out everything else after all. It's only right there is something to surprise him. The day of the attack arrives far too quickly for Aizawa's taste. The group of them leave early in the morning to arrive in Yokohama with enough time for a more drawn-out fight. While they could easily go overnight, that would bring its own risks. The longer they are in Yokohama fighting means there is a higher chance of backup being called. Fighting in the dark increases the chance of hitting your own teammate. And of course, they don't want to stay in a crookless city for longer than needed. Before leaving, they had been fitted with earpieces and small body cameras. The earpieces would allow them for communication between Snipe and Aizawa and the top three along with Netsu, who will be waiting outside the barrier. The cameras will be lined up for the principal to view in real life. That way, he can adjust the plan if needed and keep records of the fight for future reference. They arrive at the barrier with no fanfare, only a single man stood waiting for them. The man, dressed in neat suit and round glasses, stepped forward to introduce himself once they had all left the transport vehicle. Greetings, everyone. My name is Sagaguchi Ango. I'll be guiding you into the barrier today. Aizawa nodded in a greeting while Principal Nezu stepped forward. Thank you for the help. Razorhead and Snipe will be the first one entering. Nezu gestures to them both before continuing. The other three will enter once they have gotten into position. Sagaguchi nods. Alright, are you ready now? There is no need to go over the plan again. Note when Aizawa could repeat it in his sleep. Honestly, for the past few days, he's been itching for the fight to happen already. So despite his nerves, he nods at Snipe and then Principal Nezu. With that confirmation, Nezu gives them an encouraging smile. Do your best, plus ultra. All Might and Hawks give them encouraging smiles, and with that, the two of them leave with Sagaguchi. For a few moments, they walk alongside the barrier, each step taking them further out of the other's eyesight. Netsu may trust Sagaguchi, but Aizawa doesn't hold the same beliefs. Where are we going? Through his many years as a pro and a teacher, he has mastered the perfect tone to speak in. Firm enough that it's obvious he's serious, but not too emotional. almost like he doesn't care about getting an answer or what it may be. Sakaguchi spares him a quick glance before looking away again. The barrier surrounding Yokohama is impossible to get through. However, it will be impractical to cut off all ways of contact with the rest of Japan. A few moments after he finishes speaking, they arrive at what looks to be a covered entrance to an underground bunker. Crouching down, Sakaguchi unlocks the doors and opens one wide for all three of them to enter. It was decided to make an underground passages to allow for the transport of goods and, in an emergency, people. Snipe and Aizawa share a look, one of brief distrust, before they walk into the tunnel. Sakaguchi follows behind them and closes the door with a thunk. Each step took echoing down the tunnel. The walk isn't a long one, but the silence is unbearably enhanced by this soft echoing. Snipe, who likely feels the same, attempts to start a conversation. So, why did the barrier get set up anyway? Ability users aren't too common, and yet have always caused far too much trouble. The idea of those powers become commonplace must have given some poor government workers heart attacks. Sakaguchi explains with a sigh and a certain look on his face. The look of a man thinking of one specific troublemaker. His explanation does make sense. Even with strict laws against public use, quirks always seem to be the major factor behind incidents. In no time at all, they arrive at the other side, and one door later, Aizawa and Snape find themselves inside the barrier. The buildings around them give off the impression of a busy city street, and yet not a single person in sight. In fact, Aizawa can already see multiple signs of abandonment. Noticing Aizawa's questioning gaze, Sakaguchi explains. This area was abandoned some time ago due to an increase in gang activities. Now it's used as a storage space for the port mafia. Storage space? Could this be where Mount Lady had entered? Another question comes to mind soon after that, one that he decides to ask. How do you know Dazai and Nakahara will be here? With the recent distractions of supplies, the port mafia will want to take stock of what is left and replace everything missing, which would typically be left to lower-level members, but a friend of mine has assured me that those two will be handling me this time. Sakaguchi explains easily. Through the entire conversation, he hadn't changed facial expressions much. It seems like none of their questions bother him. That could mean he is trustworthy, or maybe a good liar. Aizawa isn't sure which it is yet. Unaware of Aizawa's internal debate, Sakaguchi bows shallowly to them. I'll leave you to get into position. After the fight, I'll be waiting at the tunnel with the door open, so do be quick. With that, the man leaves Snipe and Aizawa in enemy territory. The two men share a look, one that vaguely says, "What have gotten ourselves into?" before beginning their walk to positions. For a while, they scout possible options, but eventually decide on a large block of flats, just on the corner of the street. If things go well, the two boys should walk past them into the fight, allowing the pros to limit where they can run to. The building height will also keep them hidden. They settle in, Aizawa crouching near the roof access door and Snipe preparing his guns near the edge. They do not attempt to make small talk. When the other three pros arrive, it suddenly feels more real. Aizawa's body itches to do something, but he holds back. The boys aren't here yet. He can't give away his and Snipe's position so quickly either. Minutes tick by and all five of them stay deadly silent. Who knows what enemy could be nearby? More time goes by, and when Aizawa feels the nerves eating him, the sound of laughter breaks the settled quiet. A quick glance at Snipe confirms that it wasn't one of their own, although that confirmation would soon become irrelevant when a voice echoes across the empty buildings. You say that every time, Chibi, and yet never do anything about it. I'm beginning to think you're a liar. Quietly, Aizawa sneaks to the edge of the building and sneaks a peek. As suspected, the targets are walking side by side with no one else in sight. They haven't quite made it to Aizawa's and Snipe's position yet, so the other three still have a few moments before the two boys round the corner and fight commences. The two continue to talk, or rather argue, if the yelling is anything to go by. Without noticing Aizawa's steady gaze, in what feels like a lifetime later, they finally reach the corner and turn in, only stopping when they notice the three heroes standing, waiting for them. Distantly, Aizawa hears Dazai speak. Oh, it looks like we have intruders. How troublesome. The other boy, Nakahara, slips into a fighting stance, while nodding. Seems we do. Across from them, All Might takes a step forward, and his bellowing voice is far easier to hear. Young boys, surrender now, and we will not hurt you. The two boys seem unbothered by the threat of violence, which either speaks of their confidence or naivety, only taking a glance at each other. A second later, Nakahara speaks. Hear that, Shiridazai? Maybe you should surrender then. Save me the trouble of protecting your ass. Dazai huffs. So rude, Chibi. I can handle myself, you know. The other pros, seeing that their offer of mercy is being ignored, shall look at each other. Without warning, Hawks zips forward, aiming right for Dazai. While Nezu had warned him to keep a distance from the boy, it was agreed upon that Hawks would be the best way to start the fight. A swift attack like that would be hard to dodge, even with prior warning. For a moment, Aizawa was sure the attack would hit, but just at the last moment, Dazai reached into his pocket and bang. Hawks swiftly pulled up, just barely dodging the bullet. Dazai took a step back and kept his eyes locked on Hawks, his gun ready pointed upwards. From beside him, Nakahara breathes out a laugh. Huh, can even hit a bird, Mr. Perfect Aim. Dazai doesn't spare him a glance as he responds. This bird is a quick one, just like a certain slug I know. His tone sounded both relaxed and annoyed, not at all on guard or worried. Aizawa had thought the two of them were only joking around in their life because Mount Lady had no way to fight back, but now he's starting to think they always do this. That type of attitudes. It rubs Aizawa the wrong way. Nakahara doesn't grace his friends with a response. Instead, he turns his attention to All Might and Endeavor. A second later, the voice is covered in a red glow. Come on then, let's get this fight over with. In a matter of moments, the boy has shot forward towards the pros. Once close enough, he lifts a leg and aims a kick at All Might's stomach. All Might easily jumps backwards, a grim expression on his face. Very well, you leave me no choice. All Might gears up to send one of his famous punches towards the boy, but stops short when Endeavor jumps in front of Nakahara. The flying hero sends a wave of fire towards the boy, clearly intent on burning him at close range. The amount of flames is excessive, especially when Endeavor looks confused once the flames settle and Nakahara is nowhere to be seen. From his vantage point, Aizawa could see how the boy jumped into the air when the flames flew outwards. How he stayed hovering just above Endeavor with a smirk on his face. Aizawa taps on his earpiece. Nakahara is above you. He watched in real time as the flame hero looks up and attempted to shoot another wave of fire, only for it to be once again dodged. A second later, his earpiece cracks on again, but this time from Netsu. That Nakahara boy has some form of gravity control, seemingly similar to one is Uraraka. Proceed with caution as we do not know the limits. All Might seems to nod at the new information, but before he can speak, another gunshot rings out. Aizawa looks back at the other fight. Hawks continues to circle Dazai while dodging his bullets. A few of his feathers come loose and shoot down towards the boy with deadly accuracy. They get closer, and Aizawa is sure it's going to be a hit. Then again, he was sure the last attack was going to hit too. Just as the feather gets to the boy, a blue light emits from him. A second later, the feather flutters down to the ground, useless. Part of Aizawa wants to be happy, knowing that Dazai does have a touch-based erasure ability. The other part realizes that defeating him will be much more difficult now. If Hawks can attack from a distance, then they are only really relying on Snipe's bullet taking the boy down. The earpiece crackles again. Hawks, continue attacking Dazai however you can. At the very least, keep him distracted. As instructed, Hawks sends down some more feathers, each one getting their own flash of blue light before falling to the ground. Hey Chibi, I don't suppose you want a feather for a tacky hat? Dazai shouts over at his partner as he begins walking backwards, eyes always staying on Hawks. Aizawa, against better judgment, admires his focus. Any of his students would have gotten distracted by now. Looking back over Aizawa can see Nakahara dodge a blast of air from one of All Might's attacks, which ends up hitting a building, before yelling, "Fuck up about the hat already!" Nakahara leaps from the ground onto the side of the building that had taken All Might's attack. With a swift movement he lands near the collapsed rubble and places a hand on it. Not long after, the same red glow that surrounds him covers the pieces of wall. A rather large chunk of wall is sent flying out towards Endeavor, just barely clipping him on the shoulder as the flame hero made an attempt to dodge. Nakahara continues to shoot out at All Might and Endeavor while expertly dodging attacks. Not even a moment later, Netsu speaks once again. Nakahara's ability is also thought-based. Do not allow him to touch you. And an uncomfortable thought enters Aizawa's mind. If Nakahara did touch them, would he be able to throw them as easily as he does the chunks of wall? He sincerely hopes they do not find out. Taking a quick glance back, Aizawa finds that Hawks is now attempting dive attacks. Each one seems to be driving Dazai backwards and into the zone of the other fight. It is an intentional move by Hawks. By bringing the two boys together, it may be easier to overwhelm the two boys, but it does also limit the attacks of the pros. Nakahara throws another chunk of wall at Endeavor, who responds by running towards the boy who is now almost back to back with Dazai. Aizawa sees the moment it happens in slow motion. Endeavor shoots off a particularly large wave of flames just as Hawks swoops down to attack Dazai. Unfortunately, both boys take a dive out of the attack zone, leaving Hawks and the wave of fire with nothing in between. For a heart-stopping moment, Aizawa thinks Hawks won't be able to avoid being burnt, but at the last moment he pulls upwards, successfully avoiding most of the fire. The tips of his feathers seem a little crispy along with his clothes, which are now slightly blackened. Hawks wastes no time in yelling, "Hey, you almost burnt me!" Endeavor does what could be seen as an apologetic bow, but more closely resembles a shallow head nod. During the commotion, Nakahara seemed to have slipped around Endeavor and began running towards All Might. If All Might could actually land a hit on the boy, then he would certainly be out of commission for the rest of the fight. Due to Nakahara's ability, however, they cannot take that risk, so for now, All Might is stuck hitting punches in the air to create large gusts of wind. As Nakahara approaches, he scoffs. "You guys are real shit at teamwork." A gunshot rings out once more, and Aizawa's eyes find Dazai, who he had completely lost sight of after the near miss, shooting repeatedly for Hawks. Hawks continues to dodge the bullets, but to Aizawa's horror, it seems they are getting closer each time. Before, there was a good amount of distance between the hero and the dodged bullet. Now, however, Aizawa can see the edge of Hawk's wings barely pulled out of the way in time, which frankly adds another layer to this whole mess. Dazai is aiming for Hawk's wings, likely to get him out of the air and easier to hit. That sort of tactic is smart, but not something a 15-year-old should be coming up with. The combination of attempting to use Endeavor's own fire to bong Hawks feels like a warning that these two boys are more of a threat than expected. Frustratingly, it seems Endeavor has abandoned the plan and begins attacking Dazai. While the flames may be effective, it doesn't mean that Hawks can get any closer to the boy without being toasted. A fact that seems to please Dazai somewhat. "What's wrong, bird boy?" Dazai yells up, as Hawks while shooting around at Endeavor. "Did you want to get any closer?" Despite wearing a mask, Aizawa gets the impression Snipe has the same exasperated look on his face when Endeavor huffs with anger at being ignored. The pro makes to shoot a burst of fire at Dazai when he is abruptly hit and flown across the street. It seems that Nakahara had gotten his hands on one of the many abandoned cars around the street and took a shot at the distracted Endeavor, a shot that would have been definitely broken a few of the men's ribs. Through the earpiece, Aizawa can hear Netsu checking that Endeavor is okay and struggling to stay in place. He doesn't listen too hard, however, as the feeling to do something comes back in full force. Something in Aizawa is pre-warning him that the end is coming, that he will need to use his quirk soon and be ready for it. Deciding to trust his gut, Aizawa blocks out any distractions and focuses solely on Nakahara. For a few moments, nothing seems any different. The boy continues to jump out of the way of attacks and mount his own back, not even breaking a sweat whilst doing so. But then he sees it, or rather feels it. A brief moment when Nakahara uses his ability to jump upwards to escape an attack. He is still in the air, completely focused on All Might. He's high enough that a fall would hurt but wouldn't kill him, and clearly relaxed enough that any major disruption would throw him off. Erasure activates. Aizawa watches as Nakahara loses the red glow around his body and begins plummeting to the ground, helpless as gravity breaks free from his control. Everyone seems to pause for a moment as Nakahara hits the ground. A crack, audible even from up on the building's top. Despite the pain he must be in, the boy jumps back up, his left arm dangling uselessly at his side. Aizawa keeps his eye on the boy at all times to ensure his ability stays erased, but he can still hear the sounds of gunshots. A second later, Dazai yells, "Ha! That was an impressive fall, Chuya!" His voice doesn't sound worried at all. It's more akin to amusement, in fact. Nakahara takes a few steps backwards and keeps his eye set on All Might. "I cannot stand you!" Dazai shoots back almost as quickly as his gun. "Fall then! Oh wait, you already did." Aizawa is somewhat worried and disturbed. These two don't seem like friends at all. Laughing and teasing when your friend just fell a substantial hit and broke his arm. Not normal, regardless of his own reservations about the boy's relationship. Aizawa makes sure to keep his eyes on Nakahara as the boy continues to move back out of All Might's range. Principal Mezu must have picked up on the clear lack of care between the two of them as he speaks just a few moments later. "Move to backup plan 3. In backup plan 3, they take the two boys down separately with harsher attacks that don't rely on the relationship. If Aizawa wasn't focusing on Nakahara, he would have noticed Hawk seemingly pushing Dazai in a specific direction. He would have noticed when a wave of flames ambushed Dazai and caught his coat on fire. Dazai let out a panicked noise, one that drew the attention of Nakahara. As he attempted to put the flames out, Hawks took another dive at him, causing the bandaged boy to be forced to dodge while putting the flames out. The most distracted he had been the entire fight. Using this brief window, Aizawa hears Snipe aim and shoot. The pained swear a second later confirms he had hit the mark. Snipe had been told to aim somewhere non-lethal, but would still hinder the boy. He was also told to use special bullets that knocked the victim unconscious after being hit. Assuming he had managed that, Dazai should be out of commission right now, which only leaves Nakahara. Aizawa notices when Nakahara's face flashes worried for a moment, before it turns right back to determination. It's admirable that he hasn't surrendered yet. Most people faced with situations like this would have given in by now. This boy, however, keeps getting up and fighting, even when Dazai has already been taken down. Eventually, the fight must come to an end. All Might manages to knock Nakahara down with a strong blast of wind. The boy falls right onto his broken arm with a yell. The momentary pause between Nakahara's falling and getting up gives Snipe just the right amount of time to get a shot in. With the use of his quirk, it hits perfectly. Not 2 moments later, and Nakahara no longer fights to get up. Both he and Dazai are out cold on the street floor. Aizawa finally blinks and shares a look with Snipe. He grins as he speaks into his earpiece. "Principal, mission complete." This was a longer one. I am behind on schedule, so I have been trying to wrap this up, finish this, get everything ready, because I was supposed to post this on the weekend, and it's Wednesday, for me at least. I may, if I have time, may or may not, post another episode this week, but that depends. Also, I'm really happy with how this turned out. Yeah, I think that's all. The link will be in the comments.